Welcome back, travelers, and today we are going to be talking about the Flight of Nightmares, which, I mean, if you wanted an epic name, there couldn't be a more epic name than that. The Flight of Nightmares, Joe. Do you know what? You know how Bruno was the Flight of Alabaster, Gisela was also legendary lore. You know how Gisela was the Flight of Gold Knight, all that stuff?
Yes.
Do you know who the head of the Flight of Nightmares is?
Is it Saint Traft?
It's not. It's Brisela.
Oh.
Now, mentioning Saint Traft is interesting because that's actually who the majority of the story takes place from the perspective of. The
Really?
order of Saint Traft. So, in the Order of Saint Traft, we have Greet, we have Audric, and we have Thalia. And they're in the middle of everything that's been going down with the Eldrazi. And they, at this point, had a ton of people show up and join their ranks because Avacyn's angels were getting out of hand, and they were the only source of hope in the area. And even then, things were a little iffy. It's cool because the reason that Thalia has the power that she has right now is because she's actually fused with Saint Traft. She's called the heir of Saint Traft, specifically because he is inhabiting her body. Kind of like possession, but it's more like he's living inside of her.
Okay.
So she still has complete control of her faculties and all that stuff, but when she needs him, she can basically summon his power to her, which you'll see come into play very soon. Now, what's happening is that Greet is talking to Thalia, and they're kind of worried because they keep sending people out, and people come back changed. For instance, there's a guy named Halmig. Halmig, he left with the group, and he was the only one that came back. And he was a writhing mass of just, ugh. And so Thalia had to kill him. But that's basically what has been happening, is these Eldrazi-fied people keep showing up and keep causing terrible things to happen. What's crazy is that, you know how there were all those cultists from before? They were actively worshiping with Nahiri?
Yes.
It's worth knowing they knew what Nahiri was doing. They knew she was bringing Emrakul across. They just thought it was a great thing that she was doing. So all these people are calling themselves the Sin Purged because they believe that by transforming into into Eldrazi, it's their like purest form. They're attaining nirvana kind of thing. All the sin has been warped out of their bodies. They got some more recruits. A guy on a horse. His name is Rem Carolus. And they give you like a real quick blurb. He was one of the most devout servants of the church. They called him Blade of the Inquisitors, right? Mm-hmm. But after everything happened with the angels, he basically renounced his title immediately. After he saw what the angels had done, he knew that that was not a just cause, and he gained the title Slayer of Angels. And prior to that, he was like a slayer of monsters and stuff like that. And Rem rides up to them, and there's this massive thing on the side of his horse, and it's wrapped in leather. And he uses a sword and he cuts two straps, and the thing hits the ground with a heavy thud. And the tip is broken in a jagged line. Thalia realizes that's Avacyn's spear. And the Greet's like, "Did you kill her?" And Rem's like, "I wish I could have. I really wish I could take the credit. Someone beat me to it." Thalia reaches for it. And when she does, there's this like huge holy light, this flame that bursts from it and tries to like burn her hand. She's like, "Okay, I can't do that." And Rem's like, "Look, that's why I had to sling it around my horse the way I did, because for some reason it's not like we're not pure enough for it, basically, and
we're not worthy."
And it's because they're mortals. And so Thalia like kind of ignores him, like doesn't respond to him, and instead like thinks to Traft, "Can you do this?" And so she feels like there's a soft white glow that envelops her, and she reaches down and she lifts the spear with the help of Saint Traft.
Oh snap.
Yes. And so Thalia gets on her griff and flies up into the air, and she holds the spear aloft. On the spear, she's put the banner of Saint Traft. And she gives the most epic Independence Day style like speech where it's like like the angel is dead, but we are greater than that. We are still alive. There are horrors crawling and squirming across the land, but there is still hope. We have to have faith in the ideals that Avacyn upheld before her madness. And I mean, it's really well written. There's a lot more to it. You should go read the article once again. But the fact remains, she says that like all this stuff happens, and she says, for the memory of Avacyn, of the light and goodness that have fled from the world, we fight. For Innistrad and all its people, we march. And so they're going across the land because they're going to go fight Emrakul. They don't know what they're going to do when they get there, but they're going to fight Emrakul. And she's like thinking about the fact that these creatures are so much worse than the stuff that something like Geralf Sassani had made, where they were like at least those things were amalgamations of human and animals that they recognized. That seems sane and normal. She's literally fighting what she thought at one point might have been a horse and its rider that had been fused together into it that rides as one. And she cuts across the neck, and instead of it bleeding, just more tentacles come out. And it's like, what is happening and why? What's crazy is that after, like, she's fighting all these creatures, her friends are trying to help her, and they're losing people along the way because the Eldrazi are literally everywhere. Mm-hmm. There's something in the distance, a whole other army, and they're thinking, we got all the humans accounted for. That is not good, because that is at least the same size as our group, if not larger. And as they approach, they realize those aren't Eldrazi either. Heading them has a mane of flame red hair and black armor and a black skirt that is completely unsuited for battle. It's Olivia. As she says, we have common cause, human. I am Olivia Volderin, Lady of Lurenbrom, and progenitor of the Volderin line. We're working together now. And she's like, yes, heir of St. Traft. And it's like, okay.
But you have heard of me.
She goes, but I'm not going to be, like, why should we? Because you could turn us at any time. She goes, as I said before, we have a common cause. I think we're all here for the same purpose, save the world. Since your angel can't do that.
Like, oh, hey, to bring Soren to help us? We have a common cause.
And she says that she will, like, no vampire bite or blade will draw human blood until the fight is through, heir of St. Traft. And she says, no human blade will harm your kind. We agree. It's at this point that Thalia thinks back to when she joined up with St. Traft. She had been hiding. Remember how she got banished? Mm-hmm. She was hiding in this, like, isolated chapel and saw a painting of this red-haired lady with the guy St. Traft behind her. And she was thinking of how great it would be to have that on her side. And the guy basically comes out of the painting and is like, will you accept me? Will you take me in? And Thalia's like, sure. And so that's how they fuse together. Now, it's worth noting that Traft is with Thalia, right? Mm-hmm. So you have the vampires going, you have Rem going, you got Thalia in the sky with her Griff, you have a few other Griff knights, and everything's going down. She feels this presence push up against her the closer they get to Emrakul. Like there's this thing reaching into her mind, but it can't quite get through. But then she looks down at her people, and there's people on the ground writhing in pain in the fetal position, clutching their skulls. And she's like, that's bad. And she realizes it's because the Emrakul's whole deal is it warps the living. I mentioned in a previous episode that humans, werewolves, and vampires are being corrupted.
And you also mentioned that vampires are not dead on this plane.
Yes. I also did not say anything about the zombies or the spirits of this plane. And that is because the zombies and the spirits are immune to Emrakul's influence. Because Emrakul twists the living. That meant that Thalia was immune because of the spirit inside of her. So she basically turns back to everybody and she goes, hey, everyone, if you allow the spirits to enter you, you'll be shielded from the madness. And so basically Traft just summons a horde of spirits, and they all show up and they wait for people to allow them in. And everybody's like, yes, 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 please, please, please. And so they enter the bodies and they shield them, and they're like, okay now. But there's people on the ground who are too far gone, and they can't really do anything about it. Some of them bursting open into Eldrazi's, but they can't stop it, right? This is cool because obviously not everyone is turning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And right here she says that she could direct spirits to possess them against their will and drive out the madness and clear the minds. But she says, I can't do that. I can't make the choice for them. So she goes between Greet and Rem, and she can see white fire blazing in Greet's eyes. So that means that Greet accepted a spirit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when she looks at Rem, he is just stone-faced, and she's like, no Geist? And he goes, like, putting a leech on your neck to keep the vampires away. And she's like, okay.
So you're good with that thing? Yeah.
And it's cool because just right here, and if any soldier here could keep his head in all this madness through sheer force of stubborn will, it was Rem Carolus, Blair the Inquisitor and Slayer of Angels. It's like, okay.
So he's always been awesome.
Yes, he's always been awesome. He just got a card in the set, and that's why I was super excited that he showed up, because now I can put him in my Legends deck. But what's important
He deserves to be there.
Yes, he really does. They get to the outer wall of Thraben. So they hadn't even reached actual Thraben when people started losing their minds.
Oof.
And they get in, and it's crazy because everyone had the same idea. This is it, do or die in the most literal sense, right?
Uh-huh.
And they could see that there were groups of Cathars that were formerly with the Inquisition fighting the Eldrazi. There are cultists fighting the Eldrazi, like the demon cultists. There's a small pack of werewolves led by
the Eldrazi.
Yes, led by two Wolfir, and they're fighting the Eldrazi. There's a giant hulking scab standing over the corpse of its creator, fighting the Eldrazi's. Everyone is doing it. It does not matter where they are from, what they were doing. Everyone is doing everything they can to stop the Eldrazi from taking over. And it's cool because we've been surrounded by horror this entire time. And it's at this point in a lot of horror films where there's a chance and everyone's fighting and doing what they can. So they kill the high priestess of the Eldrazi. And it's a win, right? Sita is dead. And it's Olivia, she's the one who killed her. And Thalia looks around, she's looking for everybody to make sure everybody's okay. She sees Rem, she's looking for Greet, she's like trying to make sure everybody's okay. And Trust's like, why does that bother you so much? Your enemy is slain. You wanted to do it. Did you want to do it yourself? And she's like, oh, I'm not a saint, okay? I wanted to get some vengeance. Yeah. And so she sees Rem, and he is white-faced and wide-eyed, his sword on the cobblestones, and he's pointing up behind her. And so real quick, she turns the griff, and she is consumed with terror when she sees a creature of twisted flesh, writhing tentacles, and feathered wings. It's Brisela. Thalia's like, that's bad. That's really, really bad. And only I can stop this. And so she gets herself ready. She grips her sword. She's got her spear. And she goes above the broken cathedral. She is going straight for the creature. She sees it like there's like a tangled mat of reddish hair from where Gisela was, like that's what's left of her. And she yells, abomination. Obviously she's getting destroyed because she's trying to fight what is essentially an Eldrazi harbinger, an angel Eldrazi. It's a beautiful creature. And she knows that it's too hard to do. She knows she can't stop this. And that's when Sigarda shows up. And she's got her scythe ready. Because like obviously you can hold your scythe like this and have the like that, but this isn't how you hold a scythe when you're gonna fight. You hold it downwards to get the full reaping potential out of the scythe. That's how you truly use a battle scythe. She sees them and they say, you should have answered when we called. She goes, so I can be part of this great work? Yes! The great work nears completion. And she's like, you're already done. You have become what we were meant to destroy. And so what follows is an exceptional fight between Sigarda and Thalia working together to try and defeat the combined force of Brisela and of Brisela. So this fight is happening, but Brisela is insanely powerful, right? And so she basically smacks Thalia out of the sky, and Thalia's griff is killed in the process. She's on the ground, the broken spear is beside her, and Traft is there, and she looks up and she sees Brisela absorb Sigarda into her. Because Brisela's whole deal is she wanted to be whole. She wanted the full three of them together. And so she basically just, and Sigarda is now inside of Brisela, being absorbed. And it's at this point that Traft says, pick up the spear. And Thalia's like, it's too heavy. And Traft reminds her, they can do it together. And so she grabs the spear, and wings sprout out of her, translucent wings. The blessing that Traft had is the beloved of angels. And so now Thalia, looking basically like Avacyn herself, a glowing beacon of what Avacyn once was, rises into the air and brings the spear, drives it through Brisela's spine into her core. And as she does that, there's just like this scream and this agony and this pain as Thalia has finally defeated Brisela. And it's just this writhing mass of tentacles. And then Sigarda bursts out of her sister's chest, smeared in blood and ichor, and crashes to the ground. And Thalia clings to the spear and rides Brisela into the ground. And
Sigarda's like, I'm free, so you're okay. Didn't say that.
And it says sister is the last words it says. And it's on the ground, and it like curls up, and it just like dies like a dead spider kind of thing. Like it just, and Sigarda's hand lifts Thalia to her feet, and Sigarda is not happy at all because she just had to kill her sisters. And she looks around and she sees that more werewolves have shown up, and now they're tearing apart more Eldrazi. The humans are pressing forward. The zombies, there's more zombies. There's like a smattering of them. And then there's the humans, and they're winning, and they're turning the tide. And then Emrakul's in the sky, and they're like, oh, snap. And then suddenly a bunch of the humans that did not accept them start transforming into more Eldrazi, and they're like, so much for that. One more step towards annihilation. The tide is turned again against them. And that's where the story ends. At least for today.
That was really good. Thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to go ahead and catch you guys next time with some more legendary lore. So go ahead and leave a like if you like the video and subscribe so you don't miss that.